The Talon Imperium ships loomed over the green world of Arborea. Their metal hulls gleamed in the light of twin suns as the last of the arboreal defense fleet burned in orbit. On the surface, tall cities of living wood smoldered under the assault of Talon weapons. Admiral Dayho stood on the bridge of his flagship, hands clasped behind his back. His silver scales caught the light of the tactical displays, showing the final moments of resistance. 5 years of war had come to this inevitable conclusion. The last free civilization in this arm of the galaxy was falling. Status report, Dayho said. The arboreal central defense grid is down, replied Commander Mina. Their leaders are requesting terms of surrender. Dayho's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. There will be no terms, only submission. Hours later, Dayho walked through the grand hall of the Arboreal High Council. The living walls had been scarred by weapons fire. The ornate floor was covered with the fallen leaves of the council members. Their plant-like bodies withered as they died defending their world. Only one remained alive. High Chancellor Willow knelt before Dayho, her bark skin cracked and seeping golden sap from multiple wounds. You fought well, Dayho admitted, but the outcome was never in doubt. Others will rise against you, Willow said, her voice like rustling. Leaves. There are no others, Dayho replied. Your alliance was the last pocket of resistance in this sector. The war is over. Later that day, Dayho addressed his officers in the captured council chamber. Talon banners now hung from the walls, covering the ancient arboreal symbols. Today marks the completion of our grand campaign, he announced. The Talon Imperium now controls all civilized worlds in the Orion Arm. Our ancestors began this journey 500 years ago, and we have fulfilled their vision. The officers thumped their chest plates in salute. The sound echoed through the hall. Prepare the integration protocols, Dayho ordered. I want this world's resources flowing to our core systems within 30 days. As the officers dispersed, to their duties a young communications specialist rushed into the hall. Her scales were pale blue with stress. Admiral, she said, we've detected an unusual transmission. From where? Dayho asked, annoyed at the interruption of his moment of triumph. Unknown origin, sir. It penetrated our encryption as if it wasn't there. Dayho followed her to the communications center. The Talon operators worked frantically at their stations, trying to trace the signal. Put it on screen, Dayho ordered. HFY. Main display flickered. The image showed a creature Dayho had never seen before. It stood upright on 2 legs with soft skin instead of scales or bark. It wore some kind of uniform with unfamiliar symbols. This is Captain Park of the United Earth Defense Force, the creature said in a calm, measured voice. You have attacked our allies. We are coming, the message ended. The room fell silent. What species is that? Dayho finally asked. Unknown, Admiral, replied his intelligence officer Jin Woo. It calls itself human. And where is this Earth? Jin Woo consulted his datapad. There is a planet by that name at the edge of the galaxy. It's not in our records of civilized worlds. Dayho snorted. Find out everything about these humans. If they were allies of the Arboreals, why didn't they join the war? Perhaps they weren't ready, Jin Woo suggested. Or perhaps they're bluffing, Dayho said. A desperate attempt by the Arboreals to scare us. Dayho ordered long-range scans of the region where Earth was supposedly located. The results came back within hours. Earth was a small blue-green planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. Initial readings showed signs of industrialization and artificial satellites, but nothing that suggested advanced space travel. Their technology appears primitive, reported Sujin, the science officer. They've barely left their own planet. See? Dayho laughed. Nothing to fear. But that night, as Dayho prepared for sleep in his new quarters in the captured arboreal palace, he found himself replaying the message in his mind. There was something about the human's eyes that troubled him. They contained no fear, only resolve. The next morning, Dayho made a decision. Send a reconnaissance fleet to this Earth. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. Is that necessary, Admiral? Asked Mina. Our initial scans show they pose no threat. I've conquered 17 worlds, Commander, Dayho replied. I've learned to be thorough. As the reconnaissance ships departed, Dayho returned to overseeing the subjugation of Arborea. He had almost forgotten about the humans when one of his ships returned 3 days later. It was badly damaged, limping into orbit with failing engines. "What happened?" Deho demanded as the captain was brought before him. "They were waiting for us," the captain said, his scales pale with shock. "The humans. They knew we were coming." "Impossible," Deho said. "Where are the other ships?" "Destroyed or captured," the captain replied. "The humans, they're not what we thought." Deho felt the first stirring of genuine concern. Perhaps this war wasn't over after all. Commander Jiwoo's hands trembled as she reviewed the footage from the reconnaissance mission to Earth. Only her ship and one other had escaped. The rest of her fleet was gone, either destroyed or captured by the humans. "Play it again," she ordered her second-in-command. The screen showed the moment when everything went wrong. The Talon ships had entered Earth's solar system quietly, using their advanced cloaking technology. They had positioned themselves behind the large gas giant in the outer system to observe the blue planet from a safe distance. Then, without warning, dozens of small craft had appeared around them. They had come from nowhere, as if they had been waiting invisible in space. "How did they detect us?" Jiwoo asked for the 10th time. No one had an answer. The human ships were crude by Talon standards, blocky, inelegant, and clearly built for function rather than beauty. But they moved with surprising speed and coordination. "Attention Talon vessels," a human voice had said over their communication system. "This is Commander Lee of Earth Defense. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded." Jiwoo had ordered her ships to retreat instead. That was when the humans deployed their weapon, a pulse of energy that disabled the Talon propulsion systems. The ships that couldn't restart their engines were quickly surrounded and boarded. Now, limping back to arboreal space with her damaged ships, Jiwoo had to report this disaster to Admiral Deho. "They were ready for us," she explained as she stood before the Admiral in his new headquarters. "Somehow they knew our technology, our tactics." Deho's 4 eyes narrowed. "That's not possible. We've never encountered these humans before." Nevertheless, they disabled our ships with targeted pulses that affected only our engines. They knew exactly where to hit us. The Admiral turned to his intelligence officer. "Jinwoo, what have you learned about this species?" Jinwoo activated a holographic display showing the human planet. "Earth is what we would classify as a death world, Admiral. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, significant radiation from their sun, and atmospheric conditions that would be toxic to most spacefaring species. Yet they live there," Deho said. "More than that, they evolved there," Jinwoo continued. "Their biology is concerning. They have endoskeletal structures rather than exoskeletons. Their bones can heal after breaking. They can survive the loss of limbs. They can function with punctured organs until medical help arrives." The display changed to show human body systems. "Most disturbing of all, they are persistence predators." "What does that mean?" asked Jiwoo. "It means they evolved to hunt by exhausting their prey," explained Taeyeon, the xenobiologist. "They simply follow their target until it collapses from fatigue. They don't have to be faster. They just have to keep going longer. And they can. Their endurance is unlike anything we've seen in an intelligent species." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "That doesn't explain how they knew our technology," Deho said finally. Jinwoo looked uncomfortable. "We've discovered something, Admiral. One of our scout ships went missing in that sector about 50 Earth years ago." 50 years? And you think these humans might have found it? Learned from it? "It's possible," Jinwoo admitted. "If so, they've been studying us while we didn't even know they existed." Deho slammed his fist on the table. "I want all available information on human military capabilities." The reports that came in over the next few days painted an increasingly worrying picture. Humans had a bewildering array of weapons, from simple projectiles to sophisticated energy systems. Their military doctrine emphasized flexibility and adaptation, rather than the rigid hierarchy of Talon forces. Most concerning was their rate of technological advancement. Archaeological records showed that they had gone from primitive flight to space travel in less than 100 years, a pace that was almost unheard of. "They learn quickly," observed Mina during a strategy meeting. "Too quickly." "It doesn't matter," Deho insisted. "They are one species on one planet. We control thousands of worlds." But privately, the Admiral was worried. He ordered constant monitoring of Earth communications. The reports showed that humans were mobilizing on a massive scale. Factories were being converted to produce ships and weapons. Military forces from different regions were combining under a unified command. Then came the news that the surviving arboreal resistance fighters had made contact with human forces. Day-Ho was in his war room when the first images arrived. Human. Ships were escorting arboreal vessels through Talon blockades. Supplies and weapons were flowing to resistance cells across conquered territories. "This cannot stand," Day-Ho declared. "Prepare the fleet. We will crush this human world before they can become a real threat." As the Talon Armada assembled, a transmission came through on all channels. The same human from the first message appeared. "This is Captain Park of the United Earth Defense Force," he said. "We know you're preparing to attack our world. We are giving you one chance to withdraw from arboreal territories and return to your original borders. There can be peace between us, but not while you occupy our allies' worlds." Day-Ho laughed bitterly. "They think they can dictate terms to us? The Talon Imperium? Should we respond, Admiral?" asked the communications officer. "Yes," said Day-Ho. "Tell them to prepare for the end of their world." Colonel He-Jin stood on the bridge of the Earth battleship Dauntless, watching as they approached the arboreal meeting point. The ship was new, one of 50 that Earth had built in the 3 months since first contact with the Talon. Its hull combined human steel with elements reverse-engineered from the captured Talon scout ship that had crashed on Earth's moon 50 years ago. "We're being hailed, Colonel," said Lieutenant Song. "It's the arboreal ship." On screen, He-Jin ordered. The face that appeared was plant-like, with bark-textured skin and eyes like green gemstones. Vines that resembled hair moved gently around. The being's head. "I am General Thorner of the Arboreal Resistance," the being said. "Thank you for coming." The meeting took place on the arboreal ship. He-Jin and her team wore their dress uniforms, while the arboreals welcomed them with a ceremony involving sacred waters. "For 5 years we fought alone," Thorner explained as they walked through the living corridors of the ship. "The other worlds of our alliance fell one by one. We thought hope was lost until we detected your signal." "We've been monitoring deep space for decades," He-Jin said. "When we picked up the Talon transmissions about their final attack on your world, we knew we had to act." They reached the command center where a holographic map showed Talon-controlled space. It was vast, covering thousands of star systems. "Their empire is huge," He-Jin observed. "Yes, but they are stretched thin," Thorner replied. "Many worlds they claim to control are actually in constant rebellion. They simply don't have enough ships or soldiers to maintain true dominance." "That's consistent with our analysis," He-Jin said. "They rely on fear more than actual military presence." Thorner's plant features arranged into what He-Jin recognized as a smile. "And you humans don't fear them, do you?" "We respect their capabilities," He-Jin said carefully. "But no, we do not fear them." The planning session lasted for hours. The arboreals shared detailed information about Talon fleet movements, defensive systems, and communication protocols. The humans offered new weapons and tactics that the Talon had never encountered. "We'll need to coordinate our first strike carefully," He-Jin said. "Element of surprise is crucial." 3 days later, the first major battle between human forces and the Talon began. Admiral Day-Ho had sent a battle group to secure a strategic moon base where arboreal rebels were hiding. He didn't know that 3 human ships were waiting. The Dauntless and its sister ships, Thunder and Relentless, hid behind the moon's magnetic field. When the Talon ships arrived and began their attack run, the human vessels emerged from hiding. "All ships execute Pattern Omega," He-Jin ordered from the Dauntless. "Weapons free." What followed shocked the Talon commanders. The human ships deliberately vented their reactor plasma, creating a cloud that their sensors couldn't penetrate. Then they flew through this cloud, taking damage to their own ships, but emerging in positions the Talon didn't expect. The human weapons were strange, hybrids of projectile technology and energy systems. They fired metal slugs accelerated to near light speed, followed by focused energy beams that traveled through the ionized path created by the slugs. The Talon shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were penetrated. "How are they doing this?" demanded the Talon commander as his flagship rocked with explosions. "Our shield should stop those primitives." The battle lasted less than an hour. 3 Talon dreadnoughts were destroyed. The remaining ships retreated in disarray. News of the defeat spread quickly through the Talon command structure. Admiral Deho could hardly believe the reports. "They deliberately damaged their own ships to gain tactical advantage," reported the surviving Talon captain. "Who does that?" Meanwhile, on Earth, the United Defense Council was meeting to plan the next phase. Representatives from every major nation sat around a circular table. The room was tense but determined. "The Talon will respond with overwhelming force," warned General Minho. "Their pride has been wounded." "Let them come," said Defense Secretary Yunji. "Our orbital defenses are ready." "And our allies?" asked President Han. "The arboreal resistance has been reinvigorated," reported Colonel He-Jin via holographic link from the Dauntless. "They're launching attacks on Talon outposts throughout their former territories. Other subjugated species are watching closely. If we can demonstrate that the Talon can be defeated, more will join us." "Then we need a decisive victory, President," Han said, "something that cannot be ignored." The plan they developed was bold. While the Talon were preparing their counterattack against Earth, a joint human arboreal fleet would strike at the heart of Talon power, the central command station orbiting their throne world. As the human ships prepared for the mission, Captain Park recorded a final message to the Talon leadership. "Admiral Deho," he said, looking directly into the camera, "you still have one chance to end this without further bloodshed. Withdraw from arboreal territories, and we can negotiate peace." The reply came quickly. "The Talon Imperium does not negotiate with primitives," Deho's message said. "Prepare for annihilation." Captain Park smiled grimly as the transmission ended. "I was hoping he'd say that." The human fleet jumped to light speed, their engines leaving a distinctive blue trail across the stars. On 100 worlds, oppressed, peoples looked up at the sky and whispered the same words. "The humans are coming." The Talon Armada filled the space around Earth, 300 warships arranged in perfect formation. Admiral Deho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable conquest, watching the blue-green planet on his view screen. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Show these humans the consequences of defying the Talon Imperium." The first wave of Talon ships moved forward, weapons charging. They expected token resistance at best. Their intelligence suggested that humans had concentrated their defenses around major cities and military installations. "Energy readings from the planet's surface, Admiral," reported the sensor officer. "They're activating defensive systems." "As expected," Deho said dismissively. "Our shields can withstand anything, they—" His words were cut short as the space between the Talon fleet and Earth suddenly filled with thousands of small objects. "What are those?" Deho demanded. "Satellites," said the sensor officer in confusion. "But they weren't there a moment ago. They must have been cloaked." "Impossible. Our sensors can detect any cloaking technology." The satellites activated simultaneously. Each fired a concentrated beam at a specific Talon ship. The beams weren't particularly powerful, but they were precisely targeted at the shield generators. "Shields failing on multiple vessels," reported Commander Su-Jin in disbelief. "They've somehow matched the exact frequency of our shield harmonics." Before Deho could issue new orders, a second wave of attacks came from a completely different direction. Earth ships emerged from behind their moon, using its mass to hide their approach. "They're using projectile weapons alongside energy beams," Su-Jin reported, her voice rising in pitch. "And both are somehow penetrating our shields." The human ships were smaller than their Talon counterparts, but moved with greater agility. They darted between the larger Talon vessels, firing targeted shots at engines, weapons systems, and communication arrays. "This is impossible," Deho muttered. "How do they know exactly where to hit us?" On the bridge of the human flagship Determination, Commander Ye-jun watched the battle unfold. Next to him stood Dr. Sang-mi, the scientist who had spent 30 years studying the crashed Talon scout ship. "The frequency modulators are working perfectly," she said, watching the data streams. On her tablet, "Their shields can't adapt fast enough to our changing attack patterns. And the targeting data? Yejun asked. Precise to within 2 centimeters, Sang-mi replied with quiet pride. Every shot hits exactly where we want it to. The battle in sea. Earth orbit was only one front in a suddenly expanding war. Throughout Talon space, arboreal resistance fighters launched coordinated attacks on occupation forces. Inspired by human successes, other subjugated species rose up against their Talon. Overlords back on the Talon throne world, the Imperial Council was receiving increasingly dire reports. We've lost contact with our garrisons on 17 worlds, reported the military coordinator. The rebels are using human weapons and tactics. This is unacceptable, hissed the Supreme Counselor. Admiral Daeho promised a swift victory. Indy. Earth orbit. That victory was slipping further away by the minute. A third of the Talon fleet was disabled or destroyed. The rest were being forced into a defensive posture. We need to change tactics, insisted Sujin. Our standard attack patterns aren't working. Then use non-standard ones, Daeho shouted. Target their population centers. Let's see how brave these humans are when their cities burn. 5 Talon. Dreadnoughts broke formation and descended toward Earth's atmosphere. Their weapons targeted the city of Sydney, Australia, firing energy beams that cut through clouds. Human defense systems intercepted most of the attack, but some beams reached the ground. Buildings collapsed. Fires spread. Sydney has been hit, reported Lieutenant Song on the Determination. Civilian casualties estimated at 3,000. Commander Ye-jun's face hardened. Inform Ground Command to initiate Thunderclap Protocol. Across Earth, hidden missile silos opened. Hundreds of missiles launched simultaneously, each carrying a specialized payload designed specifically to target Talon ship materials. Missile launch detected, reported the Talon sensor officer. Primitive nuclear weapons, our shields will... The missiles detonated before reaching the ships, creating an electromagnetic pulse of unprecedented power. Talon systems, particularly vulnerable to this type of attack, flickered and died. We've lost main power, Sujin reported, as emergency lights activated on the flagship. Weapons, shields, propulsion, all offline. How? Daeho demanded. How do they know our weaknesses? On Earth, Talon's psychological warfare experts analyzed human communications after the attack on Sydney. They expected to see panic, calls for surrender, political infighting. Instead, they found something that chilled them to their core. They're unified, reported Talon intelligence officer Hyun Ki. The attack has made them more determined, not less. Their leaders are speaking with one voice. Their military recruitment has tripled in the past hour. That's not possible, Daeho said when he heard the report. No species reacts that way to attack. Fear should divide them. Humans appear to be different, Hyun Ki said quietly. When threatened, they don't scatter like rational beings. They band together. As his disabled flagship drifted in Earth orbit, surrounded by human vessels, Admiral Daeho finally began to understand what they were facing. Not just an enemy with unexpected technology, but a species with a mindset the Talon had never encountered. Send a message to the Imperial Council, he ordered. The humans cannot be defeated through conventional means. We need reinforcements, all available ships, all available weapons. But even as his message was sent, human and arboreal forces were advancing across Talon space, freeing world after world from Imperial control. The breaking point had been reached. The neutral planet Meridian orbited a yellow sun much like Earth's. Its surface was a mix of blue oceans and continents covered with purple vegetation. In its largest city, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in a circular building with a transparent dome. Talon diplomat Jun Seo sat stiffly in her chair, her silver scales dulled by stress. Across the polished stone table sat Director Kim, the human representative. Between them was a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Large portions of what had once been Talon space now glowed green, indicating liberated territories. The Talon core worlds glowed red, surrounded by the blue of human-controlled space. The terms are fair, Director Kim said, gesturing to the document before them. The Talon Imperium will withdraw to its original borders from before the expansion. All conquered worlds will be free to determine their own futures. You could demand more, Jun Seo said quietly. Your forces now control our major supply routes. You could starve our worlds into total submission. Director Kim's expression remained calm. We don't want your empire. We want a galactic community where all species have self-determination. Junseo struggled to understand this approach. In the Tylon mindset, victory meant total dominance over the defeated. The human concept of limited war aims with the goal of peaceful coexistence was foreign to her. The Imperial Council has authorized. "Tell me to sign," she said finally. "But I must ask, why? Why did you humans involve yourselves in a war that wasn't yours?" "The Arboreals sent a distress signal," Kim explained. "We responded. That's what neighbors do." The peace treaty was signed that day. As news spread across the galaxy, celebrations erupted on hundreds of worlds. On the Arboreal homeworld, the healing forests began to grow again over the scars of war. General Thorner led the ceremony, planting new sacred groves where the old ones had burned. 3 months later, the first meeting of the Galactic Council took place. Species that had been enemies under Tylon rule now sat together as equals. Humans took their place not as conquerors, but as mediators, helping former enemies find common ground. "The humans are strange allies," observed an arboreal representative to a former Talon colony world delegate. "They fight with terrifying efficiency, yet they show mercy when victory is achieved." "Perhaps that is why they succeeded where we failed," replied the delegate. "They understand both war and peace. On Earth, the ships that had fought the Talon were being converted for exploration and trade. New technologies developed during the war were being adapted for civilian use. The first joint human arboreal research center opened in what had once been Sydney, now rebuilt with living architecture that combined both species' approaches. Admiral Daiho, once the supreme commander of the Talon forces, now lived in exile on a remote agricultural world. The Imperial Council had blamed him for the defeat, stripping him of rank and position. His home was a simple dwelling overlooking fields, where local farmers grew purple grain. The package arrived on a rainy morning. It bore Earth markings, but had passed through the new galactic mail system. Daiho opened it cautiously. Inside was a simple 3-dimensional image projector. When activated, it showed human children playing alongside arboreal seedlings in a Fauci park. The scene was peaceful, the young of both species learning each other's games. A small note accompanied the image. "From the reconstruction project on Arborea. Thought you might want to see what comes after war. Captain Park." Daiho stared at the image for a long time. Throughout his centuries-long career, he had conquered 17 worlds and never once considered what happened to them after the fighting stopped. The Talon simply took what they wanted and moved on. These humans were different. They fought not just to win, but to build something after. As months passed, the new galactic order took shape. Trade routes opened between formerly isolated species. Cultural exchanges began. Scientific knowledge that had been hoarded by the Talon was now freely shared. On 100 worlds, new generations grew up learning about the war that had freed them and the strange bipedal species that had changed everything. They told stories about human determination, about soldiers who kept fighting despite impossible odds, about a people who evolved on a death world and carried that survival strength to the stars. 1 year after the peace treaty, Director Kim visited the new memorial on Arborea. It was a living sculpture, a great tree shaped to represent the species that had fought together against Tylon rule. The human branch and the arboreal branch were intertwined, supporting each other. "We have received requests from 30 more worlds to join the Council," said Thorner, now Chancellor of the Free Arboreal Worlds. "The galaxy is changing faster than anyone predicted." "Change can be good," Kim replied, watching the sun set through the memorial tree's branches. "We're stronger together than we ever were apart." As darkness fell, the memorial began to glow with soft bioluminescence, a living reminder that even after the most destructive war, new life and new connections were possible. The new galactic order had begun. "Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses."